Hi everyone, my name is Alicia. I'm the features director at Miss Malini, and today I'm here with three lovely people who are here to have an open, honest, and hopefully enlightening discussion about ungendering menstruation. And without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, can we start with you, Sonal?
Hi everyone, I'm Sonal. My pronouns are they and them. I currently lead as a co-founder at Boond, which is a social enterprise that works on all things menstruation, including programming policy and reusable period products like menstrual cups and cloth pads. I also lead as a curator. I head the curation team at FFX Festival, which is a 4-day festival for creators in India that happens in Uttarakhand every year.
Thank you.
My name is Lava. I also go by the moniker Bombay Bejar. That's my artist tag, I want to say. I am a writer and a performance artist. I'm non-binary trans masc. So I'm essentially a trans dude, trans guy, trans boy. I hesitate to use the term man because I feel like it comes loaded with patriarchal backing and misogyny and toxic masculinity. So I prefer the terms guy, dude, and boy. My pronouns are he, ze, and they.
Thank you for joining us. Yogi?
My name is Yogi. I go by he, they. I'm trans non-binary. I am actually a tattoo artist. I've been a tattoo artist for the last about 3.5 years now. And I'm starting college, like med school, in about 2 months from now. So that's...
Congratulations!
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Start off with, can we talk about the campaign and why the three of you participated in such a campaign? What is the need for it? And basically, I just want to understand from your personal perspectives why it's the need of the hour.
Started when we launched something called the Periods and Powers Toolkit. The toolkit on how menstruation can be discussed by media, by different stakeholders who work in the space of menstruation. Could be government, could be civil society organizations, or people like you and I, regular civilians. How can we discuss it more holistically? And I remember that the first point that came out was to use inclusive language, because these are the people we're addressing. These are the people we're working with, and it's important that everyone is included. So that's how ungender menstruation came into being. And we put out a call for, and two trans masculine people also worked with me in it. We had Daman and we had Krishna. Daman is in Uttarakhand and Krishna is in Chennai, and of course I was also part of it. And later on we reached out to more people asking who else would like to be a part of the campaign, and Lava and Yogi being a part of this interview.
I started menstruating at a fairly early age. I started menstruating at 11, and I'm also a PCOD sufferer. And this is not something I knew until 2018, by the way. Like, I was not taken to a gynecologist during my childhood, because essentially what happened was I got my period, and all was done was, like, my mom gave me these sanitary pads and said, okay, listen, you're grown up now, you're a big girl now, so here, take this and just, figure it fuck out. And I'm just like, okay, I don't understand this at all. Like, I just genuinely don't understand why I'm even menstruating in the first place. We weren't given growing up, we weren't given the sex talk. We weren't told what it is what is the reason that we're menstruating at all. Like, so when we're not told the basic reason for why we have a reproductive system in the first place, how can one expect us to even question the fact that menstruation should not be gendered? But to even gender menstruation, to attribute it to something that's feminine, which it pisses me the f off, and the marketing around so many brands. Like, I analyze menstrual brands because I'm looking for alternatives to run-of-the-mill sanitary pads,
Right.
and everything is female-driven, female-led, feminine hygiene.
Yeah. Feminine hygiene is a big one.
Feminine hygiene,
Yeah.
like, you can say menstrual hygiene, you can say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, effectively the fact that it all boils down to the feminine of it. I'm like, so where do non-binary people and trans guys fit in.
Yeah, the whole feminine hygiene and embracing womanhood, like that's great. Like you guys go for it. Anybody who wants to be associated with being feminine or a female gender, go for it. But I think there's a big gap in the middle where trans men or people who are non-binary or even agender who don't go by anything need that inclusion somewhere, because I think to break that we need to start talking about gender itself, and that itself is a very touchy subject for people.
Yeah.
Because it's not that they're not open to learning about it, it's just that they're so used to having just a set binary saying he is male, she is female, and there's nothing in between, has become like a norm for people. Yeah. So I think if we are able to educate people saying, hey, there is an alternative, there's more people and there needs more inclusion, then one by one things will change. But given how orthodox we are, that is pretty much a shoot in the dark kind of a deal.
But it is, I mean, the fact that you guys have come together to even speak up about this, I'm hoping that it means that there is some sort of movement. I don't know if it's enough or it's getting better or it's stagnant or it's worse.
I'll be very honest about this, and I'm going to be a little blunt about it. There are a number of cis women who are rejecting this. They seem to be I've observed it myself, that there are authors, activists who are cis women who seem to want to stick to promoting the cis normative binary, especially around menstruation, and they talk about how menstruation makes them feel all like blood moon goddesses and some bullshit. And like Yogi said, you do you. Like, you want to do that blood moon goddess shit, go for it. Like, do it. But you do realize that not all menstruators are cis women. And this pushback is essentially what is harming the ungendering of menstruation.
Declaring was the word that I had to use. Yes, sorry. I would like us to think, what is gender? Is gender just one's reproductive organ or a private part? If it is so, then why does one need to go declare that, okay, this is my private part, I have a vagina? I don't need to know. I mean, between
if you're tagging it or at private, then it should be private.
Then it is a social role that we are performing, right? So I could be man performing, I could be woman performing. And the man and woman again have to be defined by X kind of characteristics. For some people, it could be protector, provider, nurturer, whatever it is. But today, some of us are all of it. Some of us could be any of it that we choose to be. Yeah. So for me, it doesn't fit. My contribution to society should be as I am, and I want to live without a reference. And the fact that I want to live without a reference is what is disturbing to people. Because if I say I'm not a woman, then I'm often asked, are you a man? And then I say I'm not a man. Then they're like, what are you? Because I only understand a man and a woman. And now if you're neither of these, then I don't know where to fit you, how to categorize you. And so I don't know how to deal with you. But deal with me as you would deal with any other person. Just treat me with respect. Right? What is in my pants is my business. What is in my skirt or what is in whatever I'm wearing or not wearing is my business. Nobody has to deal with it. Just treat me as a person with respect, and that's more than enough.
Why and this question of
this question of, oh, but if you are non-binary or agender, why is it that you dress like a woman? No, darlings, no. I dress the way I want. Now, the way I dress, if it is fitting into your reference of a woman or a man on any said day, that's your problem, not mine. In that process, menstruation is just a bodily function for me, and it is private to me. And because so many of us go through it together, like so many of us also have to do things once a month or once a day or whatever it is, right? I might have to pee, I might have to poop, I might have a cold, I might need multiple other things, I might have to feed myself. A lot of these things have to do with biological functions. Similarly, menstruation is one. So enable a society where all of us can menstruate comfortably, but I don't have to be defined by my menstrual process. But if I have to be included because I undergo this process and I am a part of it, then make space for me, because I need to access whatever resources that I need to. True. Just like any other menstruators, irrespective of what they identify, based on their contribution in the world or their role in the world, which is what we call gender.
How do you tackle this idea of everybody's fixation to put something in a box, firstly? To understand that again, like I said, language is important, and in a scenario where we have the words that can be inclusive, what in your opinion is kind of what is stopping the usage of that?
I generally think that, at least from a medical standpoint for me, I personally have not been to a doctor in the longest time. So I have not been to a gynec either for the last probably 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
Given my age, that's a hell of a long time right now. So the main reason is that there is a sense of dysphoria given especially by doctors, because the doctors that we have appointed now, who are well respected doctors, or at least are very, very pushed up on a very far generation from ours. So I think that generation gap not only causes a lot of problems, but it also kind of restricts their thought process to a point where it's kind of, I've heard this from many people, especially my residents and people that are on the same batch as me. They've been like, oh, you know what, they're just used to it, so let it go. I think that's a kind of attitude that we need to get over, saying, you know, they're used to it, so let's just kind of like go around it. It's kind of the same as neglect. Going and telling a trans person or a non-binary person, anybody who's not cisgender, to say, you know what, they're not going to respect your pronouns, they're not going to respect your gender identity, just let it go. I think that's something that causes a lot of dysphoria, because personally for me, I don't want to name out any people because I don't want to get trouble myself, but the person that I'm with right now, no matter how many sacrifices I've made, that person is still not okay with my gender identity. I say they because I don't want to call out anybody specifically, but they're not okay with me identifying as a trans boy. So I am trans non-binary, but I lean more to calling myself a trans boy. So having the whole he, they pronouns, this person was not really exposed to it much. And they don't believe in it either. They think that it's something made up. And for those people who out there who genuinely think that, you know, the whole concept of LGBT is made up, it is. The same way somebody came up with the English language and we're using it now. It's not like we made up these feelings, right? The feelings were there. We just put word to word for each one. So I've seen a lot of people say, oh, you guys come up with new terms. No, we don't come up with random terms. There are stuff that are already there that we put labels on to make people comfortable with what they are and stuff like that. Not real. Gender is as real as, you know, like blue watermelon. Like, it's a concept. We can like, you know, like I'm trying to put it together. Gender is a social construct.
Yeah.
There are actually, many people don't know this, but there are actually 6 different recognized chromosomal patterns that we take in. So it's not just XX and XY, there's XXY, there's XXX. And this is not somebody's gender. Somebody can have XY chromosomes and still identify as a male, female, non-binary, whichever they like. So I think that's just kind of where it starts.
Pride, the march, the month, the celebration, the fight was started by trans people, right? Trans people who were colored. But still, for some reason, even though they are the genesis of this whole thing, trans inclusion is still kind of on the back burner in some way. How, from your perspective, how did that happen? Why? Like, to me, if a movement is started where that becomes almost like the focal point and then ripples out, but somehow I feel in society right now, it's trans inclusion is still like
in a word,
right?
Trans people have now become either people who are on the fringes, or they are only represented by the ones who are in the who fit in with the binary understanding of gender, like as in they pass for the gender that they they're trans women who passes
Yeah.
women, or trans men who passes men, and who've had gender affirming surgeries. Now, for a start, not all trans people want to take gender affirming hormones or want to have gender affirming surgery. There's also a situation where some of us cannot take gender affirming hormones. Like, I'm 28, like I'm nearing 30, and I'm a pre-diabetic trans guy with PCOD and possible endometriosis as well, which has not been diagnosed, because there's a gap in menstrual health where gynacs in this country they are hesitant to diagnose you with endometriosis. But I've known my conditions. Essentially, there is a difficulty in me taking tea, even though I want to start taking testosterone, but I have to consider the health implications of it. And if I'm unable to, there's a good chance I can never take tea, even though I want to. But the point being that all these hurdles are effectively erased from the discourse that Pride is truly about. Like, essentially, like the fact that transness is in and of itself non-binary is erased from the discourse, because there's this assumption that, trans means you must want gender affirming surgery, you must want gender affirming hormones. And this narrative is largely controlled by cisgender people, specifically cisgender monosexual gay men. And it is the responsibility of cisgender people to, I want to say, listen to trans folks and prioritize their narratives. Trans folks and non-binary folks. Trans and non-binary folks, and prioritize their narratives over cisgender narratives. Because you don't understand, cisgender people, while queer, do not understand what it's like to question gender. To have to be raised in a binary normative, cishet normative society, and to constantly question what it's like to even be outside of the binary.
About the politics around gender and sexuality, I think sexuality is more openly accepted, simply because one, sexuality is not as often spoken about, and a lot of people think, okay, it's been repressed and we want to talk about it. And also in the animal world, homosexuality is fairly common, so it's easy for them to understand and grasp the concept that, okay, this can exist. And somewhere it is also a little exoticized, that oh my god, this is so and so and so and so, hence. But when it comes to gender, it requires a lot of thinking, that what is gender? It's a social construct. It's so much more about what human beings have made it, rather than what it could be, because it doesn't exist, right? Private parts, our reproductive parts do not equate to one's gender identity.
Yeah.
So hence it is a little more difficult to grasp, and also because then you can't easily categorize it, it is even more difficult. But it is common in all parts of the world, where I think the sexuality movement within the queer movement has taken up way more space and way more visibility than the gender queer movement. But I think it's time that we also claim our space.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.